So how do you, when it comes to an ingredient like encounter it, or are you like, I'm a chef, I need new ingredients all the time, I got to try anything I possibly can, or like how did you come to the quince?
So genuinely, the poem that you started with, I had an illustrated book of it when I was a kid.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
And so I think I just knew about it. And obviously, as a kid, when you're reading something fantastical, you think, oh, that must be so cool.
Yeah.
Kind of gets implanted in your brain.
Yeah.
It's also a cool word, right? That word
Yes.
quince somehow feels magical. Maybe it is because you encounter it as a kid in a poem like that, and that's why you think it feels magical. But I think just on the face, the sound, quince.
Ooh.
It just, it's like, oh, okay, that sounds magical.
Yeah. So then once you encounter it in the real world, you think, okay, I got to try that. And I love the transformative aspect of it. It's so, like I said, in the winter, it's amazing to have. And then just something that transforms so beautifully. I just find it sort of poetically beautiful.
We've got a comment on YouTube that somebody says it took 5 years to grow her quince plant. So I guess somebody's could you grow quince around here?
Yeah, so they actually do. I'm not a farmer, but my understanding is they do really well in zone 5 and 6, which is where we are, kind of some of the northernmost climates that we have. And they're relatively resilient. And like I said, there are a couple of people in Vermont who grow them. So they're a cold hardy tree, is my understanding.
Yeah. But those trees, I think it does take years for them to actually develop fruit. So that makes sense. And there are also ornamental varieties of quince, like trees and bushes, that their flowers produce some of that kind of nice floral aroma too. So.
And of course, there are those who say if you buy the fact that there was once a garden of there was once a Garden of Eden, and there was a tree that had fruit on it in that garden, in theory, it would definitely not have been an apple, but probably a quince or possibly a quince on that tree.
Totally love that.
Because it's native to that part of the world.
Exactly.
So that's kind of interesting too. All right. Well, thank you both. We've been speaking with James Beard, award-winning chef and co-founder of Maymay Dumplings, Irene Lee, and Kelsey Roosh, co-chef at Spoke Wine Bar, about the quince. Thank you both for being with us on the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that about does it for us for now. We will be right back here in 23 short hours. If you can't wait that long, we got the podcast version you can check out. Till next time, I'm Edgar B. Hurlick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And GM Roth Design Remodeling, providing custom kitchens, bathrooms, and accessory dwelling units. Their design team works to create living-in-place solutions tailored to the needs of each home and family. More information at gmroth.com. Frontline examines the alliance between President Trump and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and how that relationship opened doors to personal profit despite Saudi abuses. Watch The Crown Prince and the President tomorrow at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Olivia Wilde. The actor, filmmaker, and producer joins us to talk about The Invite, her new film about the uneasy thrill of saying yes when you should probably say no. We'll talk about tension, temptation, and what happens when the adventurous upstairs neighbors intersect with a marriage on the rocks. She also weighs in on the Boston area museum she especially loves. Then comedian Kevin Flynn is bringing laughs from island time to prime time. The Nantucket Comedy Festival turns 20 this summer, and Flynn joins us to talk stand-up, storytelling, and why comedy belongs at the heart of community. And before Boston had a skyline, it had a harbor. Now celebrating 100 years on the water, Boston Harbor City Cruises has carried Boston through waves of change. From ferries and island cruises to whale watches, Codzilla, and loads of lighthouse lore. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Olivia Wilde has spent more than 2 decades moving among television, film, and theater, from House to Tron Leg Favorite, and which won the Independent Spirit Award for Best Feature Film. Moved behind it with her feature film directorial debut, Booksmart. For years in front of the camera, Wilde moved behind. Olivia Wilde has spent more than 2 debut in the play 1984. After years in front of the camera, Wilde moved behind it with her feature film directorial debut, Booksmart, the teen comedy that became a critical favorite and which won the Independent Spirit Award for Best Feature Film, or Best First Feature. She followed that by directing and appearing in Don't Worry, Darling, a psychological thriller about a carefully ordered 1950s-style community where the picture of domestic bliss hides something much themselves and their relationship. It's a sharp opposite marriage and honesty. Wilde directs and stars opposite Seth Rogen as one half of a married couple who have lost a hold on both themselves and their relationship. It's a sharp, biting, funny film about a marriage experiencing serious unraveling when they invite their tantalizing upstairs neighbors over for a dinner party, an evening that turns into a reckoning.
There's something I've been wanting to talk to you about.
We also have something we wanted to talk to you about. You can ring my bell. We feel a very strong connection with you guys.
That is so nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, say thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Very flattering.
You can ring my
The Invite from A24 was written by Rashida Jones and Will McCormack and co-stars Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. Olivia Wilde, welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
It's so good to be here. Thank you.
Well, tell me, how do you describe this film? You get this script, and what do you see in these 4 characters and these 2 couples?
I see this as a throwback to the kinds of movies that I really loved growing up. And the whole thing for me is really a love letter to Mike Nichols. I mean, it's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf coded for sure, and very intentionally so. And we really wanted to make a film focused on relationships and tension and the kind of hilarious ridiculousness of being human. And for me, there's nothing funnier than the juxtaposition of high emotional stakes in a low stakes situation. That was a big part of Booksmart, that high school feels like war. And I think in this case, it's a dinner party can feel like existentially threatening and also like war. But it all came from this incredible script that Will and Rashida wrote, which was an adaptation of a Spanish film called Sentimental, written by an awesome playwright and filmmaker named Sesque. And we all were so drawn to this very kind of simple story that allowed for this very playful ensemble piece where each character just really gets to thrive and change and hopefully delight.
Well, you have one of my favorite constructs in this film, which is it's all set in this one apartment.
Yes.
Mostly set, aside from the beginning. And so there's something that happens when the walls almost begin to close in.
Yes.
And what did you see in that opportunity of people placed together for that amount of time?
Well, I love films that play with that concept. 12 Angry Men is obviously a perfect example, and Sidney Lumet wrote so much about how he used cinematography to allow the audience to feel the increasing claustrophobia of that experience. And even, working for so many years on TV as I did with House, we would have these bottle episodes where, you'd occasionally trap somebody in a, storage room. And it was always a chance for the relationships to become the action. And I really loved this challenge that we all took on with The Invite, where my cinematographer, Adam Newport-Berra, and our production designer, Jade Healy, and I formed this kind of brain trust where we took on the challenge of how do you make that single space feel like it continues to kind of reveal itself. It continues to feel interesting. How do you make it not boring? And it's not easy, but it was so fun.
Well, tell me about I noticed right away there's a visual vocabulary that you establish
Yes.
with the tight shots and slightly jarred angled shots and then moments of looking through windows. So it disrupts our viewing.
Yes, we wanted the space to reflect the relationship, which itself was fractured, and each person had a hard time really seeing the other. So we really played with blocking your vision partially, looking through glass, looking through mirrors, using frames within frames, kind of using the architecture as barriers between people, and then slowly kind of opening the space up and allowing people to share the frame in ways that allowed them to actually see each other by the end. But we had so much fun designing the space, and Jade designed this apartment that would feel almost like a labyrinth, so that at a certain point when the characters kind of go on their own adventures, they separate and go on their own adventures, you would have the sense that you couldn't possibly know what was happening on the other side of this wall, even though they're actually very close to each other.
Well, I feel like we don't want to give too much away, but to go back to the plot, and I love that you brought in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. From the very first, I was thinking, I hope that this is a nod. It's not an appropriation, it's not recreating, but it's this great lineage.
Oh, yes, there are all sorts of Easter eggs in there for the real Nichols heads. Or Edward Albee heads. There are subtle references throughout the film because it was such a huge source of inspiration for us.
Well, I love that story and that film and the play, and I hate it at the same time because you love the characters, you love the humor, but then you see the worst in people, and it's so awful to be reminded of that. So how do you look at, your couple that you play with Seth Rogen and where they are and really not seeing themselves anymore?
Exactly. They can't see themselves. They certainly can't see each other. They've really kind of fallen into a rhythm of blaming each other for their unhappiness. And it is something that happens to many of us. It's something very familiar. And there's this sense of marriage being fueled by inertia more than actual curiosity about your partner. And resentment being so kind of deeply embedded into the fabric of what you've created. And I think particularly in American culture, we have this sense of accomplishment about making an agreement and sticking it out and doing something and staying married, and then realizing that you have sacrificed your own identity and entered into something that makes you actually deeply unhappy, but conveniently blaming it on the other person and sort of forgetting that you deserve more, which is one of my favorite lines that Penelope Cruz has in the film. So it wasn't meant to be a condemnation of marriage, although I did start the movie with an Oscar Wilde quote that is very cynical. But I think that at heart, I'm very romantic, as was Oscar Wilde. I think the point of the film is really about allowing for the chance to begin again. And we were very lucky to have Esther Perel as our consultant on the film, and anyone who knows Perel's work will recognize many of her philosophies in that exact conversation.
I should read the Oscar Wilde quote. In case you don't have it memorized, it's terrible for me, so I wrote it down. One should always be in love. That is the reason one should never marry. Ouch.
And the idea of that what is lost when love becomes a contract, and is there a way to maintain the necessary kind of separation that love thrives on, the oxygen that keeps fire burning, while having combined lives? And is that possible? And many cultures have been struggling with that for many years. I think this story is one that is incredibly hopeful because it proves that sometimes it is one conversation that hasn't been had that can trigger a revelation. And we approach it in a very playful way, but in Virginia Woolf, it was a similar, I think, revelation that they come to, and it both reveals the closeness of this couple and how deeply they know each other, and how far they've kind of strayed from each other.
Well, to continue the Virginia Woolf comparison, so we have George and Martha, Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, and then we have the young couple, the wide-eyed young couple, and that's Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. Not that they're so wide-eyed, but they're the couple you look at, and we've all been to those dinner parties where you think, I want what they're having. The grass is always greener.
Right. And what we wanted to play with was the idea that instead of them being the more naive and young ones, we would kind of invert that and have them be more mature and wise because they had already kind of gone through a reckoning in their own lives. And the idea that getting older does not mean you become more cynical. It can actually allow for a kind of rebirth and a new perspective on life that can be much freer and happier. So I think there's a real optimism in this film about how you can grow into a much more joyful way of seeing relationships and yourself.
I'm speaking with Olivia Wilde, who directs and stars in The Invite out in theaters. I want to talk about how you made this film. You described this as an experiment. How was it an experiment?
So I posed the question to this group of people that I was dreaming of making this movie with, and that included the cast as well as the crew. I said, what if we do this the way we've actually always wanted to, which is make the film with rehearsal, shooting it in order on 35 millimeter film. Kind of forgot. These are all things that we very quickly sacrifice in order to make movies because people have kind of forgotten. As per the theme of the movie, sometimes you forget you deserve more. I think when you make films, you really are willing to do anything to get it made because we all just so desperately want to tell stories. Rehearsal is one of the first things to go. Shooting in order is very difficult logistically unless you're shooting in one location, and we had that opportunity. And then shooting on film was something I just really wanted to fight for. I think people forget that comedies shot on 35 millimeter are really exciting because there is a kind of high stakes quality to the process that I think brings out the best in everyone. But the experiment was interesting because it turned us into kind of a theater company. We were workshopping material together. So our screenwriters, Rashida Jones and Will McCormick, entered into this process with such elasticity, such openness, that they sat down at this table with the cast and myself, and we just kind of tore this material and chewed on it together and infused it with so many personal feelings and anecdotes. And it itself was already an adaptation of the Spanish film, and it's almost like it became another adaptation which reflected this specific cast. And so when you have someone like Edward Norton suggesting a backstory that leads to a monologue that he himself had come up with and he wanted to surprise us with on set while cameras were rolling. The cameras are rolling. Can you guys just trust me and built within this and wait for me to, where when he said, I want to hold that story until the cameras are rolling. Can you guys just trust me and wait for me to perform that before, you react? Only for Edward Norton, I think. Can you agree to something like that? And it is in the film, and my real reaction to him doing it for the first time is in the film. But that was the kind of playfulness we had when approaching it. Everyone was so engaged, and I'll say that, typically when you make a film, actors are coming in for just the scenes that they're shooting and then leaving and doing their own thing and coming back next time they work and jumping back in. This cast was engaged 100% of the time. Everyone was there all day, every day, just as you are in a theater production. And they'd go home and come up with ideas and pitch things, and the workshopping would continue. And we would send ideas to Will and Rashida, and they would come up with ideas based on those thoughts. And we kept workshopping the script throughout production. And that was thrilling. It was a risky, exciting experience.
Well, it was clear to me in watching the film the extraordinary chemistry you all had, the realness that comes through. Now I'm hearing the respect that you all had off screen as well. How did you know? You had to be so careful because, one, you had to get a certain caliber of actor, but how did you know you had this dream team in this coterie of actors?
Well, I think when you're speaking to people like Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton and Seth Rogen, you're aware that you are engaging with such high-level performers that if they are attracted to the material, it's because they know they have a lot to bring to it, and they are eager to sharpen and personalize these characters. So their enthusiasm was something that made me just so confident that we were going to make something great. I mean, even if we could tell any story. That foursome that we became, I felt like we could be a real theater company that could take on any kind of story and tell it well together, because we became so trusting that acting felt effortless, because we all just kind of entered into this group kind of hypnosis, and directing them was obviously an incredible honor. I've been watching all of them my entire career. Seth and I kind of came up at the same time, but he always had this superpower that I admired, this unbelievable intelligence and empathy for his audience. And Edward has such insane range. He's so smart that he really understands how to make every scene as interesting and unpredictable as possible, and he brings such gravitas. Penelope has always been, I think, one of the world's greatest comedians, but usually she's doing it in Spanish. She's done it in English as well. Vicky Cristina Barcelona is one of my favorite films. She's flawless. But I've always admired how she brings such warmth and a spontaneity to her characters, and she's just enigmatic. So getting to play with them was extraordinary, and directing them was kind of mind-blowing. It really, I keep likening us to the astronauts on the Artemis 2 mission, because it was like we all had unique skills that when put together really felt like we could accomplish amazing things, but we were so bonded. It felt like we were wearing a kind of a harness together, and no one could fall.
There's one other film I want to ask you about that occurred to me as I was watching your film, and that's An Indecent Proposal. Because I was thinking when that film came out in 1993, there was such conversation. For people who might not know what we're talking about, this is Robert Redford as a billionaire who is offering a couple, Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson, $1 million so that Robert Redford can have one night with her.
Chills just thinking about it.
But remember how controversial that was?
Yes.
There was so much conversation about sex. And then, without giving too much away, but I think people got clues in the trailer that we just played, I was thinking, we've moved so far in society on film in sex. And what your expectation is about how this film will be received in that regard.
I think people are having really high-level, open, interesting conversations about sex these days in a way that shows such evolution from where we were when that film came out. I think that film was always about more than sex. It was about insecurity, fear, possession, power. I'll never forget the scene of Woody Harrelson running down the hallway, regretting that he's allowed her to go, and she's already taking off in the helicopter. I think this film is similarly talking about sex, but is about so much more. It's about the relationship dynamics that govern our lives and how sex plays into that, and is kind of a reflection of how much we know about ourselves and our partners. That go beyond kind of what audiences has been are really kind of spoon-fed to us for a long time. I mean, obviously, about sex, particularly in America, kind of we still have this has been obviously based to us for a long time. I mean, obviously, particularly in America, we still have this obviously based in a kind of puritanical perspective that fears, distrusts pleasure in every sort of way. But I think that when it comes to conversations about marriage and how we are meant to kind of evolve together while somehow continuing to evolve individually, it is a conundrum. It is this very complicated challenge that in the most romantic way, so many people are willing to embark on. They they know it's hard and yet they get married every day. I think it's amazing. I mean, no one's out there saying like, marriage is easy, everyone should do it. Everyone's saying how difficult it is, and yet people are going for it. It's optimistic. It's an optimistic thing to do in pessimistic times. And I think this movie is acknowledging what can be really tricky about relationships, but offering a conversation that cracks it open a little bit to allow for people to be potentially a little more curious. And I love the idea that this film might spark conversation between couples, that might allow for people to feel comfortable revealing something about themselves to a partner who may feel they know them better than anyone else.
Yeah, I would advise people who are seeing this film to book your dinner after so you can have the conversation.
Yes.
Quick final question for you to bring it back home. I hadn't realized that you went to Phillips Academy here in Massachusetts.
I did.
And on the campus of, and it's in Andover, and on that campus is a museum which is just at my heart, the Addison Gallery of American Art. Was that a springboard for you, that museum and that experience for your career?
It's extraordinary. I hope I understood at the time how lucky we were. I definitely had come from a small school in D.C. where we had nothing like that, and I walked onto the Andover campus and was blown away that the Addison was just there for us to experience for free, for anyone to experience, and had unbelievable masterpieces. And I think that allowing young people to have access to that kind of art is transformative in their lives. And my favorite, freshman year class was we went as part of our English class to walk around the Addison and sit and pick a work of art and write a story based on that work of art. And I wish I could remember which one I picked. It would have been a perfect way to round that out. No, but it was so wild that we just, we had these masterpieces around town. We had a giant Calder mural outside the library. We were surrounded by this beauty. And I like to think it's somehow infused by osmosis into our young adolescent brains. But I think it's a testament to, the power of exposing young people to great art, and how we have to make sure that in general in our, school system in this country, we don't remove access to the arts, because I'm only where I am today because arts were prioritized in my education. And I think that the Addison was a truly privileged, extreme version of that. And what a magical place.
I couldn't agree more. Olivia Wilde, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, congratulations on your film.
Thank you so much.
Olivia Wilde directs and stars in The Invite from A24, written by at the Coolidge Corner Theater this Friday, July 3rd, before its nationwide release on July 10th. Coming up, we head to Laugh Island by way of Nantucket's 20th Annual Comedy Festival. Co-founder and comedian Kevin Flynn joins us for that conversation. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
We're counting down to the end of the year here at GBH. Wait, already? Well, the end of our fiscal year. It's coming up tomorrow. In a year full of challenges, you helped us meet the moment. Now, as we crunch the numbers for our next 12 months, you have what it takes to start us off on the right footing. If you depend on the quality local journalism here on 89.7, make a contribution now at gbhnews.org.
Funding for our programs comes from you. And Gentle Giant Moving and Storage Company, offering local, long-distance office and piano moving with 23 locations throughout New England and across the country. More information at gentlegiant.com. And Subaru of New England. The all-wheel drive 2026 Subaru Outback is designed for summer adventures. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com.
And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB.
Staying informed shouldn't take all day. The GBH News app catches you up with everything you need to know in just a few minutes. The big stories, local coverage, and deep dives, only a tap away. Download the GBH News app on the App Store or Google Play.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. A programming note, Thursday we'll be coming to you from Provincetown, where we're joined by towering townie, the legendary John Waters. But right now, comedian Kevin Flynn has made a career of moving among stages, screens, and some more unconventional arenas. Before stand-up, he was a professional soccer player. When he left soccer, Flynn found his next arena in Boston's comedy rooms, winning the Boston Comedy Riot and launching a career in stand-up, film, and television. He may be the winningest boyfriend Sex and the City's Charlotte ever had. On Nantucket, he has turned stand-up into something that serves a community. As co-founder and executive director of the Nantucket Comedy Festival, Flynn brings top comics to the island in support of Stand Up and Learn. It's a year-round program that helps young people find their voice and confidence through comedy. Now, marking its 20th year, the festival runs July 8th through the 11th, including a kids' comedy smackdown, giving young comics from Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard their own stage. Kevin Flynn joins us to talk about laughter, mentorship, and what comedy can do beyond the punchline. Welcome to The Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Jared. You did your due diligence there. That's going back a little time warp there.
We're little NPR nerds here. We like, well, especially with soccer. So what is it like to see the mania around soccer?
It's been wonderful. This is actually the first World Cup I have not covered in some form, either through ESPN or Fox News or Fox Sports and Sirius XM FC. And I'm actually enjoying it as a civilian. I went to the game in SoFi the other night. The U.S. lost last minute, kind of a heartbreaker, but they're playing well. And for me, someone at my age to have started soccer when Pelé came, to watch the development of it. And it was funny, soccer, people tried to keep it down for years. They were threatened by it for some reason. And when you see something like the World Cup, just the celebration of people's cultures and the love they have for the game, and suddenly for other cultures that they experienced through the World Cup. You guys, Scotland, came through here in Boston. It was fantastic.
So you heard about that because you're out in L.A.
Yeah. They're headed to L.A. They were in Florida. I mean...
No, but I said even out in L.A. you heard about...
Oh, we heard all about
our mad affair with the
and,
Scots.
And they were always great fans. I remember when I covered it in France in 98, I got caught up with the Scots and traveled with them for 2-3 days. And people are like, back at home, they were like, these are great stories you're filing. I'm like, the Scots are a walking story. They're filing their stories themselves. It was so much fun.
And you're still wringing out your liver.
Yeah, exactly. So I had to go on air, so it was a little difficult. You had to pace yourself, Jared. So it's been great. And, we got to hope the U.S. keeps going on, because the better they do, the better, the attention's there, the money's there, the fan support, and people get to appreciate other cultures. They see like these random cultures, and they've expanded the pool, which a lot of people were against. But in a way, I think like Curacao and Cape Verde, they get to celebrate. They're in heaven, and even if they lose and go home, it's been great. They're part of that party.
Nobody's not liking any of this, especially in this city, which you know well. Everybody loves to complain about everything. I was sitting in traffic this morning going through the tunnel, forgot that they had closed some of the exits, and I thought, but this is for a really great reason. For once, I'm not going to complain, even though I live in Boston, and that's our right.
Right. When I lived in Manhattan, whenever one of the presidents came through, everybody would complain, because the traffic got even worse than it was originally. But you're like, hey, look, the president's here.
Well, let's go to Nantucket. And first of all, the 20th anniversary of the Comedy Festival, that's a huge milestone.
Yeah, it's been great. And I never saw that when I started it. I started it on a very small level and for a very small reason. Kind of a sad story to begin with. It was a number of suicides that happened on Nantucket, teenage suicides. And one of the young men who had taken his own life, he was a soccer player, and I had coached the team. I had volunteered when I was out there. I had a newborn, and so I stayed on Nantucket for a couple of months with her there. And so it touched me. And we had talked about comedy with this young man. And I thought, I was living in Manhattan. I read in the New York Times about his suicide, and I thought, what can I do? And so I called a bunch of my buddies, because I was a Boston comedian originally, then moved to New York City. And and I knew a lot of guys in LA as well. And I asked a bunch of them if they'd come out and do a workshop for the kids. That's really how it started. That simple. I said, let's go to the junior high school. Let's go to the high school. Tell these kids, hey, comedy is fun. Express your ideas, write, get up there and perform. Look at people in the eyes. Tell them your story. And it went really, really well. And I was out in Nantucket, and they're like, can you stay for another day? Can you do another session? We want more kids to come. And so we stayed there for 2-3 days. And I thought, well, you know what? Well, I have all you guys out here. Why don't I do a show for the adults at night? And that weekend, we had a comedy festival. And it was a big success. And from that, people started to say, can we figure out how to do stand-up comedy for little kids? And I thought, yeah, let me teach them a little bit. And so over the course of about 10 years, we started to develop this curriculum. We're like, how do you teach kids to do this?
Let me stop you before we get into that, which I'm very curious about. What is it about stand-up comedy? What's the skill set that it brings to kids, especially those who may be struggling? Again, the reason this was founded.
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think it's almost like being a good athlete, being funny naturally, but you can develop the skill. You can develop it using hyperbole, all kinds of things to kind of tell your story. And a lot of the great comedy writers are not performers. They're people who watch and observe and write and think in a different way. And we wanted those kids to come out too. What I realized was when I started to have about 10, 15 kids in a room, they're all shy. Nobody thinks they're going to be funny. You tell them to write a joke, they'll get all nervous. So what I started to say was, hey, let's come up with a funny story. Do you have any brothers and sisters? Are they older? Is your brother mean to you? Is your sister bossy? How about a dog or a cat? And so once one of the kids starts to talk, they all start to talk about it. And I have a cat. Oh, my sister's the same way. And you watch these kids, random kids from different walks of life, start to empathize with each other and realize they have something in common. And one of the things I do when I teach the classes, I say, okay, we're working on, Gerald's bit, but I want you all to contribute. So you're not taking time off right now. I call it the writer's room. We sort of say, what do you have for his story? Any ideas? And then I tell them no bad ideas, because bad ideas lead to good ideas. And a bad idea might be a good idea for somebody else. And the kids start to get excited about it. And the one thing, I wasn't a great student. I had ADD, and I sort of was all over the place, but I had these thoughts and creativities. And the teacher said to me, they said, you guys just held their attention for 2 hours. And that's really huge. And so I knew we were onto something. So I knew we could take someone and develop a 2-minute bit. I tell them it's just a 2-minute story. I remember one of the first kids, he said, I have nothing funny. I said, well, what happened over Christmas? He said, well, we went to my grandmother's house. I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, we almost missed the boat. My mother thought you left the coffee pot on. You're like, okay, you start to write the story down. The mother shows up, the grandmother shows up in curlers, at the airport, and the mother's embarrassed. So I go, oh, well, what did your grandmother sound like? What did she look like? What did she walk like? And suddenly you start to paint this picture. So I tell the kids, write a little short story, and I'll help you with it. And then we find the funny within your story. And I got to tell you, to watch a 10-year-old boy or girl stand up in front of people and say, so what else is going on? My mom, and you're like, it's just mesmerizing, and it's wonderful. And I try to get them early, because I was really targeting high school kids. But high school, you get a little too cool for school. Yeah. All that pressure. We're all trying to fit in. And so I try to get them in early so they kind of get that feeling of what it's like to stand up in front of people.
How long are you working with them with this curriculum?
Well, it used to just be a 3-day workshop, and the kids would perform at the end of that, which was pretty amazing. But over the course of the years, I started to, have teachers out on the island who would work with them for a 6-week period. And you'd see such a difference then.
This is what I'm getting at, the transformation you must see as they come into their own and they find this conviction and they know they can be funny, and then they have this much different way of looking at the world.
Right. And then they see the reaction that people have. And then right after the show, all their brothers and sisters run up and say, how can we do this? And things. So it's sort of fun. And are they going to be stand-up comedians? No, probably not. You tell your kid to take piano lessons. What do you want to be in a band, travel around the country, cut albums? Like, well, no. You learn things from doing that.
But what you were describing at the beginning, take me through your holiday visit. What was your grandmother wearing? It's teaching these observational skills. You and I were just talking about watching people on the subway. Everybody's got their head down in their phone. We're the only two people erect and just looking around while everybody else is like in a cartoon.
Right.
But this teaches people to be aware.
To be aware, and also that your story matters. And I always tell people, and parents will say, do you want them to be stand-up comics? I said, well, no, but I want them, if they sell insurance, to be able to talk and look at someone in the eyes, be at a dinner party and be able to tell your story and make people go, oh, that's, and that starts the conversation. And so I tell this one story about one boy who took the class 3 times, and he was very good. But at the end, he was starting to get a little bored. He was like, I'm still doing the same thing. And I said, well, continue to do the same thing. You're developing a little bit of an act. And then you keep adding to it, and it changes. Because every time I do something on stage, it's usually a little different. And then he went away to summer camp, and they said there was a talent portion. And he stood up and did a killer 5 minutes that he had already done, And he came back. His mother said, oh, but he was the star of the show. And he was, he was hooked.
Oh, this is so
hooked. So it's wonderful to see that.
I'm speaking with Kevin Flynn, the co-founder and executive director of the Nantucket Comedy Festival. Its 20th year runs July 9th through the 11th. The festival also features the Kids Comedy Smackdown on July 8th. Well, how did you come to it? If you started in soccer, that you didn't have this experience writing comedy and thinking about comedy as a 10-year-old, how did you make the transition yourself?
Well, I blame the nuns for a comedy edge where, you try to make your friends laugh in sort of a repressed atmosphere. I always tried to be funny. I always enjoyed being funny. There's nothing better than laughing. And after soccer, like I said, I was a graduate assistant at BU for the soccer team. And I went to Stitch's Comedy Club and sat at the bar with the head coach. And we were going over the lineup. And it was an open mic night. And I watched everybody. And if you've ever been to an open mic night, it can be very painful.
Yeah.
It can be really a lot of, you're going to hear a fork drop in the back of the room. And I thought, I think I could do this. And the coach goes, I think you could too. And so about 2 weeks later, I went up and tried it. And I did pretty well. And I was kind of hooked. And the Boston comedy scene was absolutely unbelievable.
So wait, what era was this? Because we know the figures who've come out of here.
1812.
Yeah.
And I think, boy, it was 89.
Okay.
Yeah, I was coaching. And so then that next year I just worked. I said I did 3 things badly. I was going to graduate school, I was coaching soccer at BU, and I was doing stand-up at night and doing all 3 poorly.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the year, I won the Boston Comedy Riot, the WBCN Boston Comedy Riot.
And who did you beat?
This is the thing with Boston. It was Louis C.K., Nick DiPaolo, Mark Maron, David Cross, Janine Garofalo, Tom Cotter, Jackie Flynn. I mean, it was the amount of comics that came out of Boston for a lot of reasons, because Boston has such a sarcastic way about them anyway, of looking at the world, but also the colleges are here and just the culture that's here. And it was a wonderful time. It really was to be a stand-up comedian. And, like I said, I enjoyed that. And that led to some hosting television shows and a few other things. So
Charlotte's boyfriend on Sex and the City.
Yeah, which was pretty random. Yeah.
So you were voted the favorite boyfriend?
One of the top boyfriends, out of all the boyfriends. If you watch that show, man, it was a lot. But I was Charlotte's boyfriend. I think part of the thing that happened was it was the first time Charlotte was topless. Can we say that in GBH? But it was the first time she was topless, so apparently everybody watched it for that reason. But I'll take some credit as well, as I was topless as well in the show.
How did those scenes go? I always think about that. I mean, we always hear that there are the coverings, but what's it like when you're doing those scenes?
Oh, I'll tell you, interesting story. So I do the role, and that's an interesting setup because there were 4 different directors that would direct it, so they didn't have that much power. The actresses had the power, which is great, but I was making out with her, and then I would and I'd fall asleep on top of her. I was playing an orthopedic surgeon who'd been up. So I'm not a doctor, although I did play one on TV. And she would wake me up, and I would roll off, and I go, what? She goes, you were sleeping. I'm like, no, I wasn't. So I try to defend that. But as I would roll off her, the sheets would fall off, and you would see her breasts. So it was contractually, she had to do that, but she didn't like it. And so she asked to close the set, which was interesting. And there was actually a person who was there who was opening the covers for me to get into the bed with her. And I was like, I can handle it. He goes, sir, I'm a union member. This is my job. I'm like, oh, sorry. My dad was a union guy. No worries.
Sheet lifter. Okay, yeah.
But the tension was pretty. You have your lines. You got to do them. She was not happy about having her breast exposed, which I would imagine I could see why.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. It was one of the first times I walked onto the comedy club stage the next night, and the place went crazy.
Everybody knew you.
Everybody knew me. Yeah.
Do you still get stopped for that?
It's funny. No, I don't. But I will tell you this. I was in New York City about 2 weeks ago, and I was with a friend having dinner, and I went to the restroom on our way out, And as I come out, there's a table of women about 25 to 30 years old. And as I walk out, the one woman waves to me and I go, hi. She goes, excuse me, were you on Sex and the City? And I'm like, oh my God, yeah, like 20 years ago. I was Dr. Walker. And she's like, oh, I remember. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And all of a sudden I look at the entrance and it's my friend. He's laughing his butt off. He set me up. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, that's
I had
awful.
a brief moment of...
Well, before I let you go, let me just ask you about going back to the kids. The great part of this is that you're now moving this beyond Nantucket, too.
Yeah. No, the great thing about Nantucket is, look, there's the year-round community and the summer community. And the summer community is from everywhere. And they would see the Stand Up and Learn program and they'd want it in their communities. And so after I worked with a woman from Disney. She was the head of education for Disney for a long time about how can we export this to anyone who wants it. And it was always me teaching kids how to do stand-up comedy. Now it's giving teachers what they need to teach stand-up comedy. So we have 6 lessons. And all the lessons are interviews with headlining comedians, little downloadable PDFs, examples of the humor we're talking about. So a teacher can go to standupandlearn.org. Go on there. All the curriculum is there for free. Let's get these kids out there, get them up on their feet, get them talking, sharing their life stories, and let's make a difference in kids' lives.
It's incredible. And just to see, if people are watching on YouTube, they'll see the enthusiasm you bring to this. I certainly feel it. Congratulations on all you've done. And we didn't even talk about the roster of comedians you have coming, a whole other reason to go as well. Yeah. Congratulations and good luck with this year's festival.
And I thank you, because when I'm home, I listen to this show.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. Well, Kevin Flynn is the co-founder and executive director of the Nantucket Comedy Festival. Its 20th year runs July 9th through the 11th. The festival also features the Kids Comedy Smackdown on July 8th. Tickets and the full schedule are at nantucketcomedy.com. Well, coming up, A Century at Sea. What began in 1926 with 10-cent sightseeing trips on the Charles has become Boston Harbor City Cruises, featuring ferries, whale watches, and the careening Codzilla. That conversation is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Trade.
Huge responses from across Europe, from the Danish Prime Minister.
Climate.
Picture this all filled with ice.
Security.
Not only do we need to end the war, we also need to prevent the next war.
These are global issues, and to understand them, you need a global perspective. I'm Carolyn Beeler.
And I'm Marco Werman. Join us for The World each and every weekday.
This afternoon at 3 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the David M. Rubenstein Americana Collection in support of the JFK Library's exhibit Declaring the Revolution, America's Printed Path to Independence, featuring historic documents that inspired the Declaration of Independence. jfklibrary.org. And Mass General Brigham. In heart surgery, expertise matters. Mass General Brigham Heart and Vascular Institute performs thousands of surgeries each year and is committed to research and innovation. massgeneralbrigham.org/heart. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, proud to support the Boston Business Journal Minute, Friday mornings at 6:45 and 8:45 on GBH's Morning Edition. More at cambridgetrust.com.
GBH News is your home for trusted local news. Get it at 89.7 on the radio, gbhnews.org, and subscribe to the GBH News YouTube channel. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Boston is a city best understood from the water. Its harbor has been an entry point for soldiers, immigrants, and tourists. And for a century now, Boston Harbor City Cruises. Founded in 1926, the company is now marking 100 years on the water. From sightseeing tours and commuter ferries to whale watches, lighthouse cruises, and the high-speed blast of Codzilla. Joining us to look back and look out across the harbor now are two people who know those waters well. Bob Lawler, Regional Vice President and General Manager of Boston Harbor City Cruises, and David Coffin, the maritime storyteller, longtime harbor narrator, and sea shanty singer whose tours give Boston history some rhythm.
Good people, give ear if you're willing, for I have some stories for you, and the tales that I'll tell, they are good ones, concerning the old and the new. On our trip
That's, of course, David Coffin. Welcome back to the show. Bob Lawler, great to have you on with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
How do you like listening to your sea shanty?
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I saw you wincing. It's always fun for me to do this. I see some people sit across from me. They get a big, giant smile. Some people rip the headphones off.
I got the smile, but I can't compete with that. There's no way I can compete with
yes,
David.
You did. Well, Bob, let me start with you. 100 years, and I love this origin story about a 16-year-old on the Charles.
I know. Matty Hughes, a visionary, right? 100 years ago. And I think the story goes that he understood that people in Boston, there was no air conditioning at all, and it was a hot summer, and he had a boat, and let's take people out on the water and get that cool breeze. And for 10 cents, a little cruise up the Charles River. And 100 years later, we are cruising to Provincetown. We're cruising to Salem. We're running the MBTA ferries. We're going whale watching every day, sometimes up to 8 times a day. It's just amazing. So it's quite a story and a wonderful family history of the Hughes and the Nolan family.
And it's also a history that came back. I saw that after the war, it kind of took a dip and wasn't really serving tourists anymore, but like any city evolves, and it came. What happened? What was the dip and how did it come back?
Well, I think the war was the dip and things changed in America and what was going on at that point. And Matty, of course, had to take some years off for the war. And when he came back, it realized, what is Boston but historic? And changing and pivoting over to historic tours and giving sightseeing tours on Boston Harbor became the family business.
Well, David, this is where you especially come in, as we just heard, with the storytelling, the singing. How do you look at these? Are they traveling stages?
Yes, we're traveling around the harbor. But what's fun is that you get audiences from all over the world, and every tour you give, you have to give it like it's the first time. You're doing them repetitively, day in, day out, and but you have a new audience every day. It's a bit like theater, but you're on a boat. And it actually, for me, it started out as theater. I started out back in 2000 when the Nolans still had the business, and we were doing a living history tour of Boston Harbor. We had an actor and a singer, and I was hired to pull the music together to go with the show. And then I thought, well, this looks like fun. I'll hire myself. So I became the singer on board. And then when that ended, I said to the Nolan family, you should have live narration. People like live narration. And Rick Nolan, I'll never forget this, he said, well, we always wanted to go live. We just don't have anyone to run it. And my eyes went up, and the rest is history, as we say.
Well, what do you find people love as they're out at sea? Because there is, of course, this great throwback moment to this too. You don't get caught in the grind of everyday life when you're out at sea.
No, but and to be fair, we're in the harbor. We're not off on a whale watch, for example. They go out to sea. They go 20, 30 miles offshore. We're in the comfort and flat waters of the harbor. But all the history is right there on the waterfront. And people don't think of looking at a city from the harbor perspective. And that's what we bring to the boat, as we say, not the table. But it's that's what makes what we do unique.
Well, we'll come back to that in a moment. But Bob, we are entering, or are we in prime whale watching season? What are people experiencing right now?
We are just the sheer number. The whales we love to see are the humpbacks, and they are out in force, and they are feeding on Stellwagen Bank, which David said is about 30 miles offshore. A great little arc, almost a crescent shaped from Gloucester down to Provincetown, and we head right out there in search of the whales, and it's just been amazing experiences. Of course, we partner with the New England Aquarium, and so we have their interns with us. We have all the great data collection, and we share all the scientific research that we collect while on board from the photos. We even get to sometimes name the new whales that come up, the babies that come up, and we get help to name those. So we've got some amazing naturalists on board that, again, just tell the story of what it's like to have a water-based community and why the ocean is so important, why this blue ecosystem is still thriving and feeding Boston as a city. Yeah. And it starts offshore. It starts with fishing. It starts with the environment that's out there, and it comes right home to Boston Harbor.
Yeah.
And I think it was just yesterday or today I saw that wonderful Boston Globe story about how people are fishing out of the harbor again, something that was unthinkable decades ago, but it is clean enough that people can fish right off of Charlestown or the seaport.
I was at a graduation party yesterday, and 3 different people came up to me. They know I work on the harbor, and they said, we were out fishing this weekend. Look at the stripers we caught. I said, where'd you catch them? in Boston Harbor, right off Castle Island, right off Deer Island, right off the airport. And it's monster striped bass that, 20 years ago you didn't see. So.
Well, David, what has it been like to do your tours right now as we're in this moment, steeped in history? We have lots of people coming to us for our history and soccer, but a lot of history, especially this coming
soccer,
weekend.
Really? You mean Scotland invaded our boat?
Did you have them?
Consumed all of our beer?
Is that true?
Absolutely.
My goodness,
they hung
they're
banners
everywhere.
off the side of the boat. They were so much fun.
How many traffic cones were left on your boat?
I don't know, but I've got one on my lamppost at home now.
So they really drank you off the boat?
They did.
Wow.
Well, not off the boat, but they consumed everything. They had to completely restock after each trip.
Have you taken a full of passenger accounting to make sure nobody off the,
No.
the boat with the way things go? Well, what's it been like with this celebration of July 4th and the 250th of the country right now?
Well, I think combined with FIFA being in town at the level that it is, the spirit is palpable. You can really feel a much stronger sense of community and more fun. And I blame Scotland for that in the best of possible ways. They brought their own spirit to the city, and it's been contagious. So there's this sort of expectation that we're just having fun this summer. And even though they went off to Florida and weren't quite as welcome there as they were here in Boston, what they left behind is still here.
Did you, we've talked, this keeps coming up on the show for obvious reasons, that it's actually genuine. Could you tell why it is, or just as a people, are they inherently good-natured and inherently looking for joy? And
it's the friendliness. There was no pretense. They didn't have a predetermination of what the United States would be like, let alone Boston. They came to have fun, and we let them have fun.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Because of that. And I see it in you said, the 250th of celebration. Really, the international traveling is back. Like, compared to the last couple of years, even running into our friends from Canada, who are always such great, they're a great part of our business. They're back in force. We've had the French, we've had the British, we've had Netherlands. I mean, the Germany's playing tonight.
Yep.
When they're in town, they're here to have a great time. And, oh, by the way, Boston's a wonderful, wonderful city with a great history, and we're celebrating 250 years, and they're embracing it. So it's really been quite fun.
And we're friendly.
Well,
we
are friendly.
It's different than New York.
We tell ourselves otherwise, but we are friendly. We're talking about Boston Harbor City Cruises, which is marking 100 years on the water. I'm speaking with David Coffin, who is a maritime storyteller, singer, and longtime Boston Harbor narrator, and Bob Lawler, the regional vice president and general manager of Boston Harbor City Cruises. Well, speaking of even more to look forward to, we have the tall ships, which are coming in less than 2 weeks at this point.
July 11th.
How do your trips coincide with what we'll see in the harbor?
In a big way, in a very
to say
big
the
way.
least.
I spent the winter researching the ships that are coming and hiring 13 other tall ship specialists to really give credibility to the history of the ship, the stories. A lot of these folk have spent time on some of these ships, either as a shanty singer or a cook or a mate, and they're well versed in the tradition of the age of sail, the great age of sail. So I've put a notebook together for each and every one of them on every single ship, and we're ready to go. We're doing about 40 trips a day.
And people can still sign up, I would imagine.
They can, yes. So we've
got
got
they better act fast.
Well, you've got the Parade of Sail, which is definitely selling fast. So if you're interested in that, that's the big day. And then throughout the week, while all those ships are docked all around Boston, from the cruise ship terminal all the way to Charlestown, East Boston, we'll be running 90-minute sightseeing tours fully narrated by David and his team, so that 90-minute are going out nonstop, just a half hour in between. We've got about 6 boats that are going out every day doing that every 90 minutes. And so we'll be carrying thousands of people, giving them an amazing narration, up close and personal to these tall ships as they're docked here in Boston.
Well, David, other than just the awesome nature of seeing all of these ships in the harbor and really getting a sense of their majesty, as you've conducted this research, what has fundamentally been revealed to you about this experience that people will have and what we should know about them being here?
Well, I think the really big ones, the Class A's as they're known, are for the most part they're sail training vessels. So they're still trying to keep the art of sailing alive and well. We have the Coast Guard cutter Eagle, which is stationed down in New London, where they train cadets on board. You spend X amount of months on board these ships. So keeping that that skill set alive. What I am most looking forward to in the Parade of Sail is, and we don't have the order of ships, but if it was anything like back in 2017, the first 5 ships that came in behind the Eagle and the USS Constitution were 5 Essex-built ships, Essex up on the North Shore, by a good friend of mine, Harold Burnham, who built all those boats. Where else in the world are you going to find a shipbuilder alive today with 5 ships that he built, one of which he sails, coming in to Boston Harbor? That to me is just an awe-inspiring accomplishment. And I don't think he's bringing his pet seagull, and I'm not kidding about that.
Oh, he has a pet seagull,
he
really?
Does.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
Harold
we do
Burnham
have
in Gloucester.
a great sail building tradition in Boston, right? I mean,
well, mostly it comes from Essex.
Yeah.
Essex, that's where the schooner was invented.
See, didn't know that history.
There you go.
I have to ask you, I'm going to ask you this even though you didn't bring any, but pizza is factoring into this too because you're not the only one celebrating a centennial.
Wait, I got some pizza right here.
What a collab, right? There's a great collaboration. That's what the kids say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Regina's Pizza celebrating 100 years as well. And for those of you who have been down to Long Wharf and seen our operation, we also operate The Landing, which is a wonderful, I call it a tiki bar, but it's a hardtop bar. It's only open seasonally from April 15th, really Patriots Day, the Patriots Day marathon game through Halloween. And we'll be serving Regina's Pizza beginning next week for the rest of the summer. So a great little collaboration. 100 years of Regina's, my favorite pizza in the area, and of course Boston Harbor City Cruises.
Well, if only I could taste it to know if it was the best pizza to have in the area.
Boats and pizza, you can't beat it.
Meaning you didn't bring me any again. That's what I'm saying.
Sorry to disappoint.
How much did the pizza cost? Do we know that in 1926?
Oh, it was probably
less
than 10
10
cents.
It has been so much fun to be with both of you. Thank you for being here today. And good luck getting through all of this summer, although you don't need luck. You seem to enjoy it so much. And it's fun. I spent a lot of time running by your boats. It's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Boston Harbor City Cruises is marking 100 years on the water. You can find the full lineup of tours, cruises, whale watches, commuter ferries, Codzilla rides, and ticket information at their website. David Coffin is a maritime storyteller, chantey singer, and longtime Boston Harbor narrator. Bob Lawler is regional vice president and general manager of Boston Harbor City Cruises. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow for Chad Smith, the president and CEO of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. In his first broadcast interview since the controversy engulfed the BSO, we'll talk about the departure of conductor Andres Nelsons, his plans for the orchestra, and the historic summer ahead. That's all tomorrow. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture